A day that I'll never forget, and that was June 28, 1971. It was the second Italian Unity Day, Italian-American Civil Rights Day at Columbus Circle in Manhattan. The temperature was in the mid-70s. I remember the crowd was estimated over 50,000. I can say it was much more than that. The mood, we were ecstatic. It was celebratory. Everybody was happy that day. But nobody knew then, but this would be Joe Colombo's last public appearance. As he made his way through the crowd, a young black man named Jerome Johnson approached him. And Johnson had credentials as a photographer from a publication. I think they called it the Negro News. What happened next changed everything. 3 shots rang out. It hit Colombo in the head and in the neck. And people, I got to tell you, I was just with him on the stage. We had to walk up on the stage, and he had called me over. And when I got there, he gave me some brochures, and he said, I want you to go by Central Park and hand them out to everybody. And they were printed brochures about what we were doing there at the league. He says, hand them out to everybody. And I said, okay, Joe. And I was a captain in a league. I wasn't a captain in a family, a captain in a league. I had earned my button because I was working tirelessly. I thought I was going to help my father. You know, to that point, I was a little disappointed because I felt they weren't doing enough for my dad. But I was patient. I knew time would come. I saw the league was growing, and I said, you know what? There will be powers in numbers. And maybe as this league grew more powerful, it would really be a help to my dad. And then as I turned to walk away, Joey grabbed me for a second, and he said, this league is going to help your father get out of prison. And man, I was ecstatic. It was like, wow, Joey. I said, thank you, Joey. This was what I wanted to hear. And I started walking to the steps that led down back into, the street. And boom, I heard the shots ring out. And then I heard somebody yell out, Joey's been hit. Joey was been hit. And I turned around. It was just chaos. And I was concerned because my girlfriend was there and my sister was there that day. And I was running around looking for them. I said, where are they? I lost them in the crowd. I couldn't find them. And it was just chaos. It took me hours before I was able to find them because we didn't have cell phones or anything, any way to, communicate at that point. And I was just looking, running. People were wondering, more shots were it was chaos. And in the chaos that followed, Johnson himself was killed. They shot him that day. To this day, questions remain about who really ordered the hit. Some blame Joey Gallo. Others suggested Carlo Gambino. No, it wasn't Carlo Gambino. They said he finally lost patience with Colombo's high-profile activities. Never would Carlo Gambino have done that in that setting. He would have called Joey into a room and shot him there. Why are you going to make a scene like that? That was ridiculous. It was crazy. It would never have been Carlo Gambino. So that's preposterous even on its face. It's not the way he would do something like that. And if he did something like that, he would be, thumbing his nose in the face of Italian Americans who were celebrating a day that day. Absolutely not Carlo Gambino. And I don't believe it was Joey Gallo either. I believe it was the FBI. They just had it. How did this guy get a press pass like that? It didn't make sense. They might have paid this guy, thought he would get a lot of money, he would get locked up, and eventually they let him go free, put him in the program, whatever, give him a new identity. It points to the FBI, and people remember, CIA had involvement with the mafia. CIA involved in what? Killing JFK. I think that's pretty clear at this point. So don't think the government would stoop to that, level. But believe me, they would. And the shooting, unfortunately, left Joey paralyzed, semi-conscious. He never fully recovered. He spent, I think, the next 7, close to 8 years in pretty much a vegetative state. He had an estate in Blooming Grove, New York. They still have that. It was sad, man. I was like everybody else, man. I was just devastated. I really was. And it was, for me, the second real show of violence that I had seen on somebody that was very close to me. There was one person before that, but Joey, who I really loved and respected, very close to me, and that was just a horrible day. Until the very end, I would say he stood by his principles. He fought for Italian-American rights, regardless of the personal risk, and he knew he had risk. There's no question about it. He was told. He knew he was facing risks. Kind of like President Trump. He knows that anything could happen, but he has principle, whether you like it or not. He says, hey, I'm going to do this. Joe Colombo was the same way. He was kind of stubborn in that regard. Maintaining such a high profile despite, warnings that would ultimately lead to his downfall. And when I say warnings, people probably said, Joey, you're getting too out there. This isn't good. You're a mob boss. This is going to come back and haunt you. Maybe he didn't think in a way that it happened. Maybe he just figured, hey, they're going to try to indict me on this, but I have the league behind me. It's strong enough to help me. I have a question for all my friends and followers. Have you tried my wine yet? You know, in the last 2 years, we've made tremendous progress with Franzese wine, and it's really all thanks to your support, and obviously because people are finding out we have a great wine at a great price. In 2025, we aim to become a national brand, and I want all of you to be a part of it. Every bottle you buy, every story you share builds more than a brand. It fuels a movement. The story of our wine is one of people having second chances and of lives being transformed. That's the truth. So go to my website, franzesewine.com, and get your bottle today. Salud, my friends. You know, like I said, he lived for another 7 years after the shooting, never regained consciousness. He passed away May 22nd, 1978. He was at St. Luke's Hospital in Newburgh, New York. The league he founded eventually dissolved, but the question he raised about discrimination and stereotyping, it's still relevant today. That didn't go away. His family continued to face challenges. I know that, you know, Anthony and Joey Jr., his two sons, they faced challenges. Christopher, his son that I'm close with now, they face challenges. Unfortunately, this stuff goes on to the family. Joey Jr. would later be convicted on racketeering charges. The Colombo family would go through periods of violent internal conflict in the decades that followed his death. I know, I was part of that. But his impact on both the organized crime and Italian-American civil rights, it can't be denied. He was the first to publicly challenge the FBI's targeting of Italian-Americans, and many of the changes he fought for in terms of ethnic stereotyping, they did take hold, there's no doubt. You see, Joe Colombo was more than just another boss. He represented a turning point, the moment when the old world tried to step into the light, for better or for worse. His story shows both the possibilities and the limitations of trying to bridge two very different worlds. I said that's very difficult, no matter who you are, very difficult. Joey did it to the best, probably to the best that anybody could do it, but it's very difficult. You know, his efforts led to lasting changes in how Italian Americans were portrayed in media and treated by law enforcement, no doubt about that. But the violent aftermath of his shooting led to, we had a lot of years of instability and conflict within the family that he worked so hard to build. I know people, I was part of that. We had 3 wars during my lifetime in the Colombo family. We had a lot of internal strife. We were known as a violent family, just the way it was. And it intensified after Joe Colombo was shot. My friends, if you enjoyed this video, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to become my partner in business. Franzese Wine experiencing tremendous growth over the past couple of years, and we're gonna experience even further growth in the next few years. You're gonna have an opportunity to be my partner because you've been supporting me, you've been my fan base, and I wanna share this with you. So go to invest.franzesewine.com, and offer you shouldn't refuse.